Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Another story sent to me by a lot of people. Here's from CBS News. Caitlin O'Kane wrote this. This grandfather was mistakenly identified as a Sunglass Hut robber by facial recognition software. He was suing now after he was sexually assaulted in jail. And it turns out he wasn't the guy. He couldn't have been the guy. But some software someplace said he might be the guy. And somehow he got caught up in that from a couple states over, by the way. And so here we are. The man's 61 years old. He's a grandfather. He's suing Sunglass Hut's parent company after the store's facial recognition technology mistakenly identified him as a robber. The man was subsequently held in jail where he says he was sexually assaulted, according to the lawsuit. The robbery took place back in January of 2022 at a Sunglass Hut store in Houston, Texas, when two robbers stole thousands of dollars in cash and merchandise. This man was identified as a suspect, even though he was living in California at the time. So when he returned to Texas to renew his driver's license, he was arrested. He was held in jail where he says he was assaulted by three men in a bathroom. He says he suffered lifelong injuries. Some people are going to say, Steve, if he's going to renew his driver's license in Texas, it implies that he had some connection there. And so there is some element of possibly something going on here. And I'm not going to get into that. I don't know what the rules are with respect to that. And I also don't know how long he's been living in California. But the county district attorney's office in Texas determined that the man was not involved in the robbery. So they decided to release him. Now, his lawyers said, of course, that's a little bit too late after he was attacked in jail. So facial recognition software is often used to match faces from surveillance footage, such as video of a store robbery, with images in a database. The system often uses booking photos, but the software can also search driver's license photos, meaning if you have a license, your picture might have been searched even if you never committed a crime. Now, this man did have a criminal record back in the 1990s, meaning he likely has a booking photo. But obviously, he also had a driver's license photo. His lawyers said those offenses were not violent. He's built a new life in the last 30 years. He's now suing Sunglass Hut's parent company, along with Macy's, which is a partner of that company. The head of loss prevention at that company said they worked alongside Macy's and had identified the man as the suspect using facial recognition software. Now, the man's attorneys are arguing that facial recognition is error-prone and low-quality cameras were used, increasing the probability of a mistake in identifying a suspect. And too often, people just rely on computers. And they go, oh, well, the computer said this. It must be right. And the facial recognition software, we've known about this for a while. And we don't work in this field, and you and I know this. It's inaccurate. And it has to do with the fact that cameras are often weird angles. They are often low quality. And if you've got a booking photo or a driver's license photo of somebody, they're looking straight on at the camera, right? So if you've got a surveillance camera over here, well, it's getting a different angle than the booking photo. Now, the people who do the facial recognition software will tell you, oh, but we've figured out how to get around that because we understand that your face is a three-dimensional thing. And so we ask it to extrapolate what that face would look like from that angle. Well, obviously it doesn't work perfectly yet, does it? A Sunglass Hut employee identified this man as the suspect in a police photo lineup, but the attorneys allege the loss prevention team met with her before that, possibly tainting the investigation. So this story is troubling for every citizen in the country, says one of the lawyers representing the man. Any person could be improperly charged with a crime based on error-prone facial recognition software, just as he was. Now, facial recognition is used by law enforcement offices like the FBI, and complex mathematical algorithms are used to compare a picture of a suspect's face to potentially millions of others in a database, but it has flaws. Last year, the Federal Trade Commission banned Rite Aid from using the technology as the company's faulty system had employees wrongfully accusing shoppers of stealing. In one incident, an 11-year-old girl was stopped and searched by Rite Aid employees based on a false match. In 2023, a woman sued the Detroit Police Department after authorities misidentified her as a carjacking suspect using facial recognition technology. The woman was 8 months pregnant at the time of her wrongful arrest. went to jail after being incorrectly identified in a police lineup. And the police chief says her photo should not have been used in the lineup to begin with. So meanwhile, CBS News reached out to the parent company for comment. They're awaiting a response. Macy's declined, and the man's lawyers have no additional comment other than what they've already said here. So this is a problem, and it has to do with the fact that we've become so reliant on equipment and machines and computers that so many people think they're just foolproof. It's just what the computer said it must be true. And the people who design these programs will tell you, we never said it was foolproof. It's just a tool you should be using. So when they run this grainy surveillance photo through the system and say, do you find somebody who matches this? It comes up and goes, yeah, there's a guy in California that matches this. And they kick out a photograph. Presumably, a human would look at that and go, okay, does this look like this guy? Does it? I mean, that seems to me that'd be the first check here. I don't know if that was done or not. I don't know. And then you would think an investigator would say, okay, the fact that this looks like this, does it make sense? And somebody go, oh, well, you just identified a 61-year-old grandfather from California, and the robbery was in Texas. Now, they might go, okay, but the guy's got a connection to Texas. He has a Texas driver's license. He's got a connection, but you still got to dig a little further. And so we don't know exactly what happened because there are some gaps in the story, but it sounds like somebody then went to one of the store employees, put down some photographs, said, do you see the guy here? And the grandfather's picture was among those. And if the person did say, yeah, that looks like him right there, well, then that's actually generally how lineups work. But the real question is, because this is being done by partly a loss prevention team, then you wonder how admissible this would have been in court. Because generally speaking, lineups are conducted by the police, and they've got certain methods and policies on how they do that. And so you wouldn't ask the loss prevention team first, go show this picture to them and see if that's the guy. Oh, it is? Okay. Then you bring him in. Now, do you see the picture before you? Yeah, that's the one I was shown at the store yesterday. And we've heard of stories like that before, where somebody was shown a photograph and then later that photograph was put into a lineup so they get re-identified in a lineup. That's not how lineups work. So we don't know quite enough about how this happened other than it does appear to have been triggered by the facial recognition software. And the allegation is that an investigation should have followed that. And that's where, if that's true, this all falls apart. That is that the guy has a great case because they should have done a little bit of investigation and figured out, oh, it couldn't be this guy. It's not this guy. It's not, And so I've heard of other stories where someone's got an ironclad alibi. And they get arrested and held for some ridiculous amount of time before somebody goes, oh, let's check his alibi. Oh, it turns out he has got a great alibi. Yeah. So that's a problem. But here we have the reliance on the facial recognition software. Now, I've seen some stories with headlines that suggest this has to do with artificial intelligence, which, by the way, is the latest thing we blame stuff on. And artificial intelligence does cause all kinds of problems, especially when it comes to writing legal briefs for attorneys or high school term papers. But this is more facial recognition software, and the question simply is, how reliable is it? And you have to understand that it's a tool like anything else, understand its limits, and treat it appropriately with that in mind, because that's the real problem. You can't go, oh, the computer found the guy, let's go arrest him and throw him in jail. That can't be your investigation. There's got to be more to it than that. So we'll see what happens here. But from CBS News, Caitlin O'Kane wrote that, and a lot of people sent it. 61-year-old grandfather mistakenly identified as a Sunglass Hut robber by facial recognition software is now filing a suit. We'll see what happens. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. I like long walks, especially when they're taken by people who annoy me.